broker's license, and she's invited here to speak about her personal experience living under socialism. And this is my fight this year, is anti-socialism. We have to counteract that movement. So Elena is my opening shot at this, so to speak. So please welcome her.
First of all, please allow me to express my gratitude to Diane for recognizing the need for someone like me to come and speak to you, and for reaching out to me. Thank you very much, Diane, and thank you for all of you being here and listening to me and taking the time of your busy schedule to give it an ear to this important topic. How would I like to start? I would like to take you on an imaginary journey in time. Imagine that you woke up one day, you went about your business, you went to your school, to your workplace, you did some grocery shopping, you called your friend that there's a beautiful sunshine, you came home and you put on the news and your TV says your country no longer exists. That's what I lived through. I was a student, graduated magna cum laude from university. His degree was bright future, only to come home one day to put a TV and a TV anchor who announces the TV news, just like the ones we see in America every day, just said the country is no more. So why is this important to know? Because I grew up in a country that was ruled by socialist system. The country was Soviet Union, or USSR. Anybody knows back to USSR? Yes. When we grew up, we were conditioned to think that the system and the government and everybody and the job and the food is going to be there forever. Imagine the shock of somebody who graduated university to have a bright future to find out there is no government, there is no system, there is no paycheck coming up. A lot of people were left without paycheck for 6 to 8 months. No money because government went insolvent. The people were practically starving. Some people turned to the life of crime. Some people turned to the life of pretty much falling towards the self-destructive escapism behaviors. The people drank themselves to death. And it did not affect just what you would call the regular population. It came from celebrities down to regular people. Everyone was in shock. The system fell apart. Was that system great? Of course not, and that's why it failed. When I put on TV here in America 20 years rolled front or forward, and I now hear what we hear on TV from the news channels, I turned to my husband and I said, honey, I've heard this before. This is familiar. I've heard this rhetoric before. The free housing, the no guns, the disarm the population that you don't need. We're safe. We're here to protect you. Rely on us. We're going to provide you all this free stuff. And when I hear this, it just, even now when I talk to you, it gives me chills and the goosebumps because it's so real. And when I told my husband, I said, do you realize that the biggest lesson of socialism, which I received when I realized what that system did to all of us? Because when you're in it, when you're a child growing up, you don't understand that. You have no point of reference. You don't know any better. You never travel outside. You haven't been to the United States. You don't know there are places where you can own your home. In Soviet Union, you couldn't own your home. There was no private property. All the industries were nationalized. So if you wanted to start a business, good luck. There is no private enterprise. There is no private property. So what do? Well, you just work for a government. You're a teacher, you're paid from a budget. You're a doctor, you're paid from the budget. Do you want to start your own business and make more money than your neighbor? No, you can't. Too bad. Everybody has to be equal. So we have to be all equally poor, right? Why do we have to be all equal? Because the people who are all equal, they don't complain, but they don't aspire either. So one of my biggest lessons of socialism is never to depend on government. One day, that government was not there for me. I was a child thinking I have a bright future and everything is provided and I have a free housing and I have a free education system and I have a free this and I have a free that. Question is, with all the free things that we have received, were my parents compensated enough? No, they all had laughable salary, laughable. Why? Because everything was taken out from their salary in taxes, and what they were left with would not allow for any wealth creation. In fact, I have created more wealth since I've been in the United States than generations of my family in the Soviet Union. Do you understand why I'm so passionate about protecting America, protecting free enterprise, protecting private property? Because I see the difference. I have a point of reference. I know that when you are in a country that has a system that incentivizes you to be better, to live up to your best potential. If you want to work harder, create more wealth, get more money, achieve more, study more, work harder, you can. In the Soviet Union, under socialist system, everybody had to have what now in the United States we want to call a minimum wage. Oh my gosh, that's what we had in the Soviet Union. If you were a doctor, you were paid a certain wage. If you were a teacher, a certain wage. If you were still a doctor or a mediocre doctor, you still were paid the same. There was no way to distinguish yourself. There was no way to lift yourself or your family or your well-being or live up to your best potential. America provides that through the free market system. And when I put on TV and when I hear minimum wage, corporate welfare, let's disarm the population. Oh, that was a favorite of totalitarian regime. Let's disarm the population so they all will be so compliant that there will not be any riots, no protests, no anything. But how did they do that? They actually evoked the terminology that we're listening right now from TV called enemies of the people or public enemies. Only we're trying to usher it through the red gun laws. And they ushered it through the people in black cars in the leather trenches who would come to your house just because your neighbor thought maybe you are making more money than they do, or maybe you got a little bit of a better apartment, or maybe just don't like you. Or maybe the KGB went to your neighbor and forced them to write something on you in the form of snitch letter just because they thought you criticized government too much. So then they come at night with a black car with a leather trench, you open the door, they say, we're here on the government business. There was a letter and a complaint saying that you do not respect our laws, that you do not comply with our philosophy. We would like to have you follow us. And these people were never heard of again. Some people, now that the archives are open through the Soviet Union, were executed by the firing squad right there and then in the basements of the KGB places. There were no trial, there were no due process, and that's why the red gun laws bother me so much. Because the rhetoric of enemies of the people, having no due process, having an opportunity for somebody who is maybe jealous or upset with you to usher some type of misjudgment towards the person who could be innocent. Do you know that millions of people were taken under the precept of public enemy or enemy of the people during Stalin era? And then when he died in 1953, they were all what they call rehabilitated. But in the lifespan between Russian Revolution and the death of Stalin from 1917 to 1953, do you understand how many millions of people went to Siberia, labor camps, gulag, no due process, no recompense of any kind? Their families, in fact, when they were taken away, those who survived the firing squad or didn't get to the firing squad for whatever reason, somebody may have put a word for them, their families were called family of the enemy of the people. Their children were children of enemies of the people. They could never hold a job, they could never enter university. There was a label with which they had to live for the rest of their life. Until Stalin died in '53, and they realized what they've done. And then the information poured on how many people died, killed, and mistreated. With that said, let's talk about public housing. Yes, we had free housing. Little did I know, all we had was a 3-room, 2-bedroom, I am a real estate broker, okay, no judging. I love talking about housing. With 1 bathroom. How many of you would like to live in a house with 1 bathroom right now? How many of you would like to have a 3-room place to live, where your adult children live with your little children, and maybe your friends come over and they're all in the same room sleeping on the floor? That's about the reality of life, but that's not the worst part. Guess when I discovered that there is air conditioning indoors? When I came to United States in, guess, 1998. 1998. Why is that? Well, because government was in charge of housing in Soviet Union. And if they thought that air conditioning indoors was a luxury and not a necessity, they just didn't provide it. So there were homes built with no indoor air conditioning. And the year was pretty much 2000. And we thought it's a modern invention when it came to the United States. Because when government thinks it's a luxury and it's not a necessity, it doesn't exist. I didn't know there was air conditioning in the home that you could live. So being a private broker, a private owner, a private rights property owner advocate right now, I own real estate property, I am an investor, I understand how important it is that we take charge, that we provide ourselves with avenues to grow. Socialism, system based on collectivism, means let's get everybody's money and then we decide how to distribute it and how to spend it, how much goes to education, how much goes to the free health care, and how much goes to everybody. Individualism, capitalism. We grow the individual. You, Diane, start a business. Then your friend starts a business. Then you pay taxes. Then you do whatever that you need to do to grow yourself. And we allow you that. We don't take everything from you to the fact when you're going to sit down and say, you know what? I have no incentive to run a business. Everything's going to be taken away in taxes. Everything's going to be redistributed. I don't need to do this anymore. And that's what worries me. The socialism rhetoric we hear from TV, direction we're going, all of this ushers the interesting mentality set where people think that American-based individualism is no longer valid, that we need to replace it with collectivism and we need to allow government to shed their grace on us. No. Donald Trump said in his speech, I believe I've been to UN this morning, he said the whole precept that we believe in America that we have God-given rights. We don't have government-given rights like the rest of the world. And that ties in with religious freedom. When do you think I've seen and touched my first Bible? Wild guess. Anybody?
1998.
Close to that. In my 30s, when I was student in the university, we studied Bible as an ancient source of record. And I went as a good student, I told you, top of the class, I always studied, I prepared well. And my librarian of the city was about close to 1 million people, shook her head and she said, well, Elena, I don't have a Bible for you to check out. I said, how am I supposed to prepare to the seminar? The Bible is there and I need to see what it looks like. She said, we don't have it. They did not have a library with a Bible in my city of almost 1 million people. No Bible to check out to a student who would study it as an ancient source of record. Not even talking about religious purposes. And if you take it further, When I was a child, I decided to sneak by the church because I would always go to music school. I actually am a classically trained pianist as well. I have so many degrees, you don't want to see my resume, it would be too boring. But when I went to the music school and I saw this church building and this music, everything is just so interesting. One day I thought, why don't I go in and see what's going on in there? There were few churches that survived atheistic breakdown of religion in 1917 by Lenin during the Russian-Soviet Revolution. And the ones who remained, they operated on a background, and the priests were supposed to provide the KGB list of everybody who came and wanted to baptize their children today. And guess why? So they could lose their job. Because you were not allowed to practice religion. There was no religion. Lenin came and they destroyed pretty much every church there was, and the ones who were not destroyed were turned to the sports gyms or clubhouses or something like that. And the couple that were remaining on the background, I think those priests probably were good business people and made some deals. Because, you know, that pretty much was non-existent. When I wrote in my diary that night that I stopped by the church, I still don't know to this day whether my mother read it or did somebody in fact did see me going in. But my mother in the morning told me, people saw you near the church, going into the church. We don't ever want to see or discuss this again. Little did I know, being a child, that your parents could definitely lose their job. They could never be promoted. Should anyone find out that you were practicing, or your children, or you yourself were involved. Talk about religious freedom. So now, when I look at TV sets, and when I look at the news headlines, and when we see people's religious freedom being chipped away, because now you no longer speak with your faith, now you're no longer allowed to practice your faith, that scares me to death. I lived it. I lived it. We cannot forget that there's people like me who lived in Soviet Union. I could be here for hours and detail every experience, how much Kleenex everybody has with them. And with that said, I will be happy to speak more and more to any group who would like to have me. But to bring this to the forefront, that Bernie Sanders says that our socialism will not be like Soviet Union socialism or Venezuelan socialism. It's just going to be democratic socialism. Well, I have news for Bernie Sanders. And my news is that socialism is legalized theft. No matter, Bernie, who administers it. No matter. He can wrap it, unwrap it, rebrand it, reword it. I know exactly what it is. It's a philosophy. It's a core belief that the collectivism wins and individual no longer. And the core belief of our system is individual who matters, and we need to grow and strengthen the individual because the individual is our focus. Not the mob, not the totalitarian rule. We are not a democracy, we are a republic for a very good reason. Our founding fathers were afraid of the rule of the mob. Socialism is nothing but the rule of the mob. When they came in 1917 to the wealthy people's homes, who had homes like probably some of you have, 2 bedrooms, 3 baths, nice little house, someplace on the hill with a nice iron fence, and they said, here's the revolution, we're socialists. You capitalists get off. You get out, we get in. Because our slogan is, who was nothing will become everything. Do we want to see this? Do we want to see when the people who did not create wealth, who do not appreciate wealth creation, who do not understand that America provides an opportunity for wealth creation like no other country? That's why we have immigrants busting our borders. There is a reason why they all want to come here. And the people who live in this country partake of the freedoms, partake of the beautiful opportunities to make the best and live up to their highest potential, would ever in their clear mind would advocate for socialism. That is totally unimaginable to me. And that's why I'm here speaking to you, And that's why it's my privilege, and thank you very much for listening. I don't want to take too much time, but it has been a pleasure. And I would like to close with saying that Social Democrats are real. They just had their convention in August of 2019. They're organizing. They are not like us, meeting peacefully at nice little rooms and fellowshipping. They're fighting. They're fighting for socialism. They're fighting to subvert America, to bring it down to its knees. They're fighting when we see debates, democratic debates, how they all want to take our guns, how they all want to make the social system so attractive that just there will be nobody left behind. We're going to have everything free. Well, the difference between socialism and capitalism, the bread lines up for you. Socialism, you line up for bread. Right? But they make it sound attractive, so what we need to do is everyone here, and myself included, we don't just need to talk about it, we need to fight back. They are fighting, they mean it. They're not there, they're partnering with Islamic counter-state with Linda Sarsour. Do you know who Linda Sarsour is? She is a new spokesman for Bernie Sanders' campaign. Do some research. Her associations go in deep as Muslim Brotherhood. And they're all promoting socialism. Communism, socialism, you have it. Totalitarian regimes who have a lot in common, meaning to subdue the population, to promote the magnanimous ideas of how they're going to be benefactors to all of us, while we're going to be their servants. I refuse to be a servant. My parents were servants in Soviet Union until they died. No.